So let's go to the fourth and the last speaker of the day. As we say in Latin, dulcis in fundum, the sweetest thing comes in the end. I'm sure that's what Professor INOCENT-MÁRIA Vladimir Stanislavo is going to offer to us. Thank you, Professor INOCENT-MÁRIA, for joining us. Just a very short introduction about Professor INOCENT-MÁRIA, a Dominican friar and professor of Catholic theology in Slovakia. And since October 2017, he is a lecturer in charge of human rights, moral theology, and ethics at the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas, Angelicum here in Rome. And in fact, he is one of the main partners of the organizational team of the joint diploma in integral ecology. So he's one of us. Professor Lampe defended his dissertation, Moral Philosophy, the Réflexion théologique sur la pensée de Anna Arendt. Interestingly, Professor Lambert also referred to Anna Arendt in his presentation. So here we have an expert who has done a doctorate on Anna Arendt at the Albert Ludwig University in Freiburg in Germany. Professor INOCENT-MÁRIA also founded Professor Spade's Applied Ethics Institute in the Faculty of Theology in Košice at Catholic University of Rosenberg. So we have the right person to conclude our session today. You would have noticed today was a very deep, solid, because the third chapter of Laudato Si is not easy, but we have brilliant people to guide us through. So Father INOCENT-MÁRIA, over to you, the floor for 12 to 13, maximum 15 minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Josh, Father Josh. Thank you all to stay with us today by this very nice meeting that we have. I try to continue in this very, how the Father Josh said, very difficult chapter of Laudato Si. I titled it Cry of the Earth and the Poor, because that is my main speech when we speak about Laudato Si, but I will try to make a view exactly about the crisis and effects of the modern anthropocentrism. This third chapter speaks about the human roots of the ecological crisis. Pope Francis proposes to focus on the place of human beings and on human action in the world. And exactly in the third chapter here, entitled The Crisis and Effects of Modern Anthropocentrism, we can see also this sentence of Romano Guardini from his book Das Ende der Neuzeit, The End of the Modern World. He said modern anthropocentrism has paradoxically ended up reprising technical thought over reality, since the technological mind sees nature as an insensate order, as a cold body of facts, as a mere given, as an object of utility, as raw material to be hammered into useful shape. It views the cosmos similarly as a mere space into which objects can be thrown with complete indifference. That's said in Laudato Si 115. We can speak, and one paragraph later, also Pope Francis speak about an excessive anthropocentrism. He said that the intrinsic dignity of the world is thus compromised when the human beings fail to find their true place in the world. They misunderstand themselves and end up acting against themselves. And he made another quotation here from Centesimus Annus from St. John Paul II, 38. Not only has God given the earth to man, to human being, who must use it with respect for the original good purpose for which it was given, but human being too is God's gift to another human being. He must therefore respect the natural and the moral structure with which he has been endowed. Now, we try to see this so-called Promethean vision of mastery over the world. Modernity has been marked, say Pope Francis, by an excessive anthropocentrism which today, under another guise, continues to stand in the way of shared understanding and of any effort to strengthen social bonds.
Yeah.
The
So, Mr.
time
INOCENT-MÁRIA, just a request from the participants, if you can have the full mode presentation, the slide. Can you put it in the full mode presentation?
I don't know. Okay, yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah. It's you have to go right down. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The right. Just click there. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
now
Perfect. Thank
it's
you.
better.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
thank you
Thank
too.
you. Thank you.
So once again, about the Promethean vision of mastery over the world. Modernity has been marked by an excessive anthropocentrism which today, under another guise, continues to stand in the way of shared understanding and of any effort to strengthen social bonds. The time has come to pay a renewed attention to reality and the limits it imposes. This turn is the condition for a more sound and fruitful development of individuals and society. An inadequate presentation of Christian anthropology gave rise to a wrong understanding of the relationship between human beings and the world. Often, what was handed under was a Promethean vision of mastery over the world, which gave the impression that the protection of nature was something that only the faint-hearted cared about. Instead, our dominion over the universe could be understood more properly in the sense of responsible stewardship. And now we can see here also in this chapter the cry of a poor person. Neglecting to monitor the harm done to nature and the environmental impact of our decisions is only the most striking sign of a disregard for the message contained in the structures of nature itself. When we fail to acknowledge as part of reality the word of a poor person, a human embryo, a person with disabilities, to offer just a few examples, it becomes difficult to hear the cry of nature itself. Everything is connected. Once the human being declares independence from reality and behaves with absolute dominion, the very foundations of our life being to crumble from instead, and this is a sentence from once again Centesimus Annus 37, instead of carrying out his role as a cooperator with God in the work of creation, human being sets himself up in place of God, and thus ends up provoking a rebellion on the part of nature. And Pope Francis, in the first chapter, what is happening to our common home, said in the paragraph 49, often there is no clear awareness of the problems that particularly affect the excluded. They are the majority of the planet, billions of people. But today we cannot fail to recognize that a truly ecological approach always becomes a social approach, which must integrate justice into discussions about the environment in order to hear both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. And I try to mention once again a big father of the theology of liberation here, Gustavo Gutierrez, has died 23rd October 23rd, 2024. And Latin America and its church lost one of the most influential figures in theology and the spirit of the gospel. Gustavo Gutierrez Merino, a theologian but also a Dominican brother and priest, and the urgent defender of the poor and the church of the poor. He died in Lima, Peru, on this Tuesday, 23rd October 2024, at the age of 96. His legacy is marked by the profound imprint he left on the Catholic Church and on the lives of millions of faithful, especially those who will suffer from exclusion and poverty on the Latin American continent. He taught that theology must be critical and liberating, situated in the historical context of the poor and oppressed. Its function is not simply to interpret this word, but to change it in the light of the gospel. A deeply religious pastor, characterized by the spirituality and the following of Jesus, that did not arise from a theoretical perspective, but from a practice based on daily life. He emphasized that talking about pain is not an easy task. It must be done on the basis of solidarity with those who suffer, recognizing that their questions are also ours. And finally, this sentence, the cry of the poor and the gospel, came from another article of the Superior General of the Society of Jesus, Peter Hans Kovenbach, from his article in 1993. The poor, who are the poor, the widows and orphans, the human beings in debt, and all those in need. Promoting justice, on the other hand, means eradicating the roots of evil and overturning the unjust order. The poverty of a rich capitalist because he is clothed on his possessions and enslaved by his money. Father Kolbenbach speaks about active solidarity with the poor aimed at redeeming their condition is one of the central points of the social teaching of the Church and of the social and political commitment of Christians who are inspired by it. This is a theme addressed by Father Kolbenbach in the text. We publish here a meditation on the gospel parable of the Good Samaritan. It is the opening address given in Genoa on the 1st October 93 at the Areco Institute on the occasion of the inauguration of the academic year of the local school of political formation. Seeing with God in every needy person a failure of what divine goodness intended for us. That was his message. And Pope Francis' homily during Mass celebration of the World Day of the Poor 2017, he speaks especially about the cry of the poor, and that is for him the stifle, cry of children who cannot come into the world, of little ones who suffer for hunger, of children accustomed to the roar of bombs rather than the cheerful clamor of games. But it is also the cry of the elderly who are discarded and left alone, of those who face the storms of life without a friend by their side, of those who must flee because their homes and lands without the certainty of the destination, of entire population deprived even of the vast natural resources at their disposal. It is the cry of the many Lazaruses who weep while a few rich men, human beings, feast on what rightfully belongs to all. And then also in the next encyclical letter, Fratelli Tutti, he start to speak once again about listening to the cry of the poor. This is a starting point, would say, from Pope Francis for aspiring to the essential recognition of equal human dignity and the consequent change in the hearts, habits, and lifestyles of each of us. It is a matter of abandoning the constant tendency towards individualism that often prevails and leads us to close ourselves off in the immanence of our own selves, our own group, and our pretty interests. This concept applied both in the interpersonal and international dimensions. Fraternity also means that relations between states must be ethically grounded and must be inspired by the authentic pursuit of the common good of every human being, especially the most vulnerable, so that no one is left behind. This means that every country is jointly responsible for creating a legal, political, economical, and social world order in which there is greater international cooperation oriented towards concrete assistance to those most in need and the development of poor countries so that the entire human family can aspire to freedom from hunger, poverty, war, and injustice. Then in the apostolic exhortation after Laudato Si, Laudate Deum, he speaks that in an attempt to simplify reality, there are those who blame the poor for having too many children and seek to solve the problem by mutilating a woman in less developed countries. As usual, it would seem that the poor are to blame. But the reality is that a small percentage of the world's richest population pollutes more than 50% of the poorest, and that the capital emissions in the richest countries are much higher than in the poorest. How can we forget that Africa, home to more than half of the world's poorest people, is responsible for only a tiny fraction of historical emissions? And in paragraph 31 here, he speaks about this situation that is not only related to physics or biology, but also to economics and our way of thinking. So, in the next and last encyclical letter, Dilexit Nos, Pope Francis tried to follow St. John Paul II. He explained that by offering ourselves together with the hurt of Christ on the ruins accumulated by hatred and violence, the civilization of love so desired, the kingdom of the hurt of Christ, can be birthed. This certainly implied that we are able to unify filial love for God with love for our neighbor. Indeed, this is the true reparation sought by the hurt of the Savior. Together with Christ, on the ruins that we live in this world with our sin, we are called to build a new civilization of love. This means making reparation as the herd of Christ expects of us. In the midst of the disaster left by evil, the herd of Christ wanted to need our collaboration to rebuild goodness and beauty. And this is a very nice tribute to John Paul II. He speaks once again that every sin can be attributed to the character of social sin that comes from reconciliatio and patientia. And explained that John Paul II explained that the repetition of these sins against others often ends up consolidating a structure of sin that affects the development of peoples. By this contribution, I try to go in my last slides and to speak also from Dilexit Nos to Dilexite of Pope Leo XIV. he said that, therefore, listening to the cry of the poor, we are called to identify also with the heart of God, who is attentive to the needs of his children, especially those most in need. If, on the other hand, we remain indifferent to that cry, the poor will cry out to the Lord against us, and sin will be upon us, and we will distance ourselves from the very heart of God. The condition of the poor represent a cry that is in the history of humanity constantly challenges our lives, our societies, our political and economical systems, and not least the church itself. On the wounded face of the poor, we see the suffering of the innocent and therefore the very suffering of Christ. And there are the many forms of poverty, and Pope Leo speaks that of those who have no means of material sustenance, about the poverty of those who are socially marginalized and lacks the means to give voices to their dignity and abilities. Moral and spiritual poverty, very important here. Cultural poverty, the poverty of those who find themselves in a condition of personal or social weakness or fragility, and the poverty of those who have no rights, no space, and no freedom. And he make a big appeal for the transformation of mentality once again after Pope Francis. And concrete commitment to the poor must also be accompanied by a transformation of this mentality that can have an impact at a cultural level. This means that there is still a culture, sometimes well disguised, that discards others without even realizing it and tolerates with indifference the fact that millions of people are dying of hunger or surviving in conditions unfit for human beings. In general, there has been an increase in the various manifestations of poverty, and the conditions of women are particularly striking. And we try to demonstrate unequivocally that there is an inseparable bond between our faiths and the poor. In a church that recognizes the face of Christ in the poor and the means of charity in material goods, Augustinian thought remains a sure light, said Pope Leo. And Christian compassion has been manifested in the special way in the care of the sick and suffering. The cloister is not only a refuge from the world, but a school where one learns to serve it better. Where monks have opened their doors to the poor, the Church has revealed with humility and firmness that contemplation does not exclude mercy, but demands it at its purest fruit. And finally, among the structural issues that cannot be resolved from above and that need to be addressed as soon as possible is that of the place, spaces, homes, and cities where the poor live and work. In fact, the deterioration of the environment and society affects the weakest on the planet in a special way. Structure of injustice must be, and that is central, and my last thought also, must be recognized and destroyed with the power of good through a change of mentality, but also with the help of science and technology, through the development of effective policies for the transformation of society. The gospel proposals is the kingdom of God. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so very much, Innocenzo-Maria, for this very, very passionate, presentation, like your Dominican friar confrere Gustavo Guterres. And I'm sure you also showed us that this is heart of the Catholic social teachings, from Pope John Paul II and Pope Francis and our own Pope Leo, that we need to see things as Gustavo Guterres in one of his articles wrote, from the underside of history, from the perspective of the poor, listening to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Thank you, and I thank you also for the passion that you communicated. That is by returning to the poor, that by touching Christ's flesh in the poor, that we can bring God's kingdom. Thank you very much to all our presenters today, Michael Cherian, who is with us, and INOCENT-MÁRIA, and Father Prem, who stepped in for Professor Dominic Lambert. We have overshot a bit, as you have seen, so I wouldn't, ask for any more questions. We had a couple of reflections already that presented, written in the chat. I would just like to pick up one each of this, then ask both Michael Cherian and INOCENT-MÁRIA to make a concluding reflection. To Michael, it was written, if I'm not mistaken, by Minia Fraser, Dice of Hexham and Newcastle. Thank you, Michael. The temptation to withdraw into individualism is great when we are surrounded by greed and climate change denial. We must all do what we can to work together and inspire others to ecological conversion. Michael, as you prepare, could I take the liberty to ask INOCENT-MÁRIA to respond to a couple of reflections that came also in the presentation of Professor Dominic Lambert, connecting, the technoscience, technocratic paradigm also to artificial intelligence, and then to war and domination. So over to Michael first, and followed by INOCENT-MÁRIA to make a reflection, responding to these questions, reflections posed by our participants.
Yes. Individualism is to separate apart. I think of the Greek root of diablo is to throw apart.
Mm-hmm.
It's to separate. And that's sin. It's to separate. And you see it happening in our world right now. You look at this hyper-individualism coming out of my country, and a lot of it's done erroneously in the name of Christianity. What's happening is antithetical to Christianity. Christ calls us into one blessed holy communion. And yet here we have this violence and ultimate selfishness that is wreaking havoc on the planet and our brothers and sisters throughout the world. Mea culpa, maxi culpa. It breaks my heart. We look back to the desert fathers and mothers and their mysticism and their contemplative nature. I think now is the time to go back into those roots, almost like a creatio divina, to let creation penetrate us and then just rest in the divine presence of God and let the Holy Spirit come in us so we can see that we are all in this beautiful sacred communion. We have it in our tradition. It's where we come from. So I invite us to go back to those roots. The mystery. Praise be to God.
Praise be to God. Amen. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Michael. Returning to the roots of our faith, Desert Fathers back to creation and meeting the Creator in God's creation. Thank you so very much. And INOCENT-MÁRIA, the very last word to you, how the vision that you propose can respond to the violence that we are seeing in 1,000 ways around the world, against nature, against one another, in the wars and widespread poverty. Yeah, over to you, INOCENT-MÁRIA.
For me, it was also today a little school to learn something new, not really very new, but if you speak about the technological paradigm and the paradox, the technological point of view about ethics also, that is very nice thought of our father thinkers. What I try to repeat sometimes, that science is not able to explain a human being, in effect, because it's not able to see inside of human beings. but we need also to explain what exactly that is mean with ideology there, to explain what is the competence of science, and what is the competence, for example, from our point of view, of the moral theologians, to explain human action, and also for the love of this world, what I mean.
Brilliant. Thank you, INOCENT-MÁRIA. I think in a way I've anticipated the next session, Pope Francis, showing the drawbacks of the technocratic paradigm, proposes the integral ecological vision, and that will be our next session. Thank you. I pass the floor back to our dear coordinator, Father Prem, whom, as you know, has not been keeping too well over the last few months. He had a major operation, but he's back now. So as we wish you a complete recovery, Father Prem, over to you to conclude our session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father Josh, for leading us, moderating this particular session. It is very enriching, very highly provoking ideas that have come up. I do hope that our participants take some personal as well as some common initiatives to do something for the Mother Earth. And from our group, from our scientific committee, I express our heartfelt gratitude to all our three speakers, Jackie Raymond, Michael Terrain, and INOCENT-MÁRIA. He's part of our group, definitely, but still our gratitude goes to you. So thank you very much, and God bless you. And I have sent all the necessary information yesterday to all our participants. Anything, please write to us, and then we have now one secretary who is assisting us, so we'll respond to you immediately. So our next session is in April 20, I forgot the date, sorry, Jose. So the 26th again, I think, 26th of April. Anyway, we'll communicate to you. And thank you again for your kind attention, and God bless you. And we thank our technicians today. We are three, Umberto Rossi, Satanino, and Cesare were here. So we have changed the place, and this sounds to be still better than our place. Here is our technician. I think you can see him. So thank you. We'll conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, as you put on your mic, and you can say hello before leaving the aula. Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gracias, gracias.
Thank you.
Señor.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for the
Gracias.
session today.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
and goodbye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you. You all have been very patient. Thank you very much. Today was a solid session. Thank you. Yeah, very philosophical. Yeah.